Hello and welcome back once again to Rage Gaming and more Dragons Dogma 2 and the Things You Didn't Know series. Today I've got more unique and interesting things to know about, some from the community as usual, as well as a couple things from our comments of the series. With that said though, let's begin. First up, we have the Ancestral Cave. It is a massive shortcut that you can find kind of between Melve and the Elf Village. At least it should be. The idea here is that you've got a ladder that you can find on, say, the Melve side really early. That's really hard to reach, but can be done if you're able to get your pawns to like fly up there or launch them up there or something like that. They can kick the ladder down, go up there, you'll be attacked by some bandits, and then you find a grate where there's a wooden barrier on the other side. Now, the normal way to get past this could be something interesting, like firing, say, the magic arrow, homing arrow, turning it around and hitting the wood, climbing over, blowing something up, or the tried and tested and reliable, having enemies attack it from the other side if there are any. But this cave is weird. There aren't any enemies there. You might imagine that there could be some undead there, and well, there is. They're actually meant to be there. The problem, I think, is that what's there is a Fell Lord specifically, which is more of a later game enemy. I am assuming that they don't put a Fell Lord there early, not until you progress the game enough for Fell Lords to exist or start spawning. If you were to go to the Waterfall Cave early, you'll find a Chimera. But if you come to that cave again much later when you progress the game, that Chimera is now a Gore version, an advanced version. And so potentially in the Ancestral Cave, you can't get the Fell Lord and his couple goons here to spawn until you progress the game enough for them to be, possible to spawn in the game. Basically, PSA, there is skeletons and undead there, and that is how you unlock the Ancestral Cave shortcut. All you need to do is go there at night and they'll spawn. Although even then, even if you've made enough progress and they should be spawning, it can bug out, further leading to why people haven't been through here and are confused by the shortcut. If that's the problem for you, then go there once you progress enough, I assume, at night, and then save and exit the game. Then reload. This should then give the enemies a chance to spawn again based on, the time of day that it is and where you are, and they should spawn that time. Then you can aggro them, then they'll break the wood for you, you can get between the two spaces, and now you have a massive shortcut between Melve and the Elf Village to reliably use. This has irked me for a really long time, and even the solution that I've given you is something I could poke holes in, because by that point, maybe you put a port crystal down in the Elf Village anyway. Because there's not really a reliable way to get to the Elf Village, since there isn't like an ox cart route to it, unless you take an ox cart to Melve, take the shortcut for the cave, and now you're there. I think that's the point, the idea of it, and yet this is working as I've outlined. Either way, at least you can get it open, and it is a very functional, very relevant shortcut once you get it going. Next up though, we have a couple topics to do with monsters and their hitboxes, and the weird ways you can abuse them. As you likely know, large monsters can be stood on rather than grabbed, and that lets you stand there and do various combos and attacks that are obviously unusable while you're mid-holding and grabbing. The hitbox though works almost like glue. The only time you're actually thrown from this is when the monster uses an attack to throw you off specifically, which is commonly triggered by it acknowledging that you're on top like that and it wants to get rid of you. It is technically possible then to stay on there for an extended period of time, where it just doesn't notice or care to throw you off, as shown by this footage by Killer Jags via this Reddit clip. He's simply standing there on the goat's head of a Chimera, zipping around and being flung about, no problem. I'm thinking this is because specifically he stood on the goat head. The goat head doesn't have a fling get off me mechanic, where the lion does. In this case, the guy's just standing there naked, constantly stomping, almost as if he's like a poor man's monk vocation. And it is very effective to do this because he's basically glued to it. So yeah, in any case, the unique hitboxes for monsters is definitely weird and interesting, but here's one. Did you know that it doesn't seem to have fall damage, this unique hitbox? As shown in another post I saw, this clip by Traditional P shows that you don't actually even need to grab onto the target. You simply fall directly onto it. P explained in this little clip, this GIF, that they jumped and fell and didn't even press the grab button, which, to be fair, would have lit up at the bottom right if they did use it, and it clearly didn't. We're talking about a massive drop here. There's no doubt this should have been a death fall, but the back of this ogre worked to completely mitigate the fall damage and stop the speed of it. I went and tested this and found that yes, in the exact same spot in the unmoored world, there's the ogre jumping off, landing on it, absolutely no fall damage, and I didn't use the grab button at any point. So if you're ever in a pinch, you can use this to ignore fall damage. Much like we kind of jump off a cliff edge and land in a pawn's arms to stop fall damage, you can just use a big monster. It's technically possible. If you guys know anything more about this, let me know, but I can say that because you're a physical object flying through the air, if you land on the head, that can cause a stagger, like a very forceful shove if you're daring enough. Obviously, there's safer, more consistent ways to do this if you're going to grab a target that you land on. Here's a good example of that by Slight Bodybuilder, again on the Reddit. They were attacking this griffin from up high, using some big spells, and eventually chose to levitate themselves out from this high ledge to drop directly onto the head. This time though, as they fell and hit the target, they grabbed at the last moment. This still stopped the fall in its tracks completely, ignoring all fall damage despite this being a deadly height. As you can see, not only is the fall damage mitigated, but the griffin reacts to this weight suddenly slamming into its head with a stagger. In this specific case, it just so happened to fall off the edge straight into the water, meaning, you know, instant death by brine. But if we were to slow this down, we can actually see a VFX for the impact of this landing grab. It's kind of a circular shockwave. An explosion of force demonstrates this mechanic. It's an intended function: fall from a high place, smash land onto a target, it'll send it reeling. That is really cool, shockingly effective, and yeah, just something I didn't know about. In general, when it comes to these unique monster hitboxes, there are some really cool things that are possible. I wanted to share this clip that demonstrates how good they are. Technically, a monster can grab you out the air mid-fall, best shown with Cyclops and Ogres because they have those grab style attacks. As you can see with this clip by Alex C, this Cyclops snags them right out of the air after they've been flung up. It's a great showcase of the physics and what's possible. Little clips like this are some of my favorite things to look at on the Reddit because, you know, while they're rare and random, there's so many of us playing that, you know, you get to see them sometimes. Next up then, we have a couple quick things to do with the Magic Archer and the Warfarer in particular in relation to that. Firstly, we have one from a comment by Don't Want to Be a Hero from an earlier episode. They talked about a simple and effective trick for playing Warfarer while working in the Magic Archer like so. The Magic Archer has an important passive. If you're using kind of elemental attacks, you'll do the elemental attack, and then as you can see, it leaves the element on the weapon for a little while. Not an overly long time, but enough to get, say, some basic attacks out. It's a temporary buff, kind of like a weapon boon. And the Frost Hunter, or Frost Fang in its early version, I believe it's called, is one of the earliest examples of this that you'll see. However, with Warfarer, this elemental buff actually persists when you rearm. As you can see, I've got it on the other weapons during the time of that buff. For some reason, I don't know whether this is intended, it allows you to swap and actually benefit from that weapon buff, even though it's coming from the Magic Archer. Further, there is the mage specific augment, you know, the passives that you can get, and perpetuation extends the duration of enchantments and invigorations. From data mining, we know that this is specifically 20%, so if a buff will last, say, 10 seconds, that'd be another 2 seconds where, you know, that can be pretty impactful. And so with a simple setup like this, if you are running the Magic Archer, it is well worth knowing that you can use this trick to extend out the elemental effect just a little bit longer. Between the augment and the mechanic itself, it's a pretty cool, useful thing to know. Also, shortly for the Magic Archer topic, we have the Magic Archer and its recovery arrow, or remedy in its first version. This allows you to heal your allies, and if you fully charge it, you can even revive them, which is pretty awesome. To my surprise, there was a good amount of discussion on a recent episode about these healing arrows and whether it actually heals you, the pawns, how it actually works. Weirdly, there's a lot of debate about it, but we're going to clear that up. Basically, it was just suggested as a tip that you could take one of these arrows and instead of just firing it normally, you could fire it at the floor. What that does is it actually means it hits you rather than a pawn, and therefore it heals you. If I was to aim it at a pawn instead of me, we get actually targeting, it goes towards them and heals them. The suggestion about this came from a user 69 Mangler and suggested that with this tip, you don't necessarily need a mage for its AoE heal to keep everyone going, and that is true. But it was Benny Bear who replied, explaining that the arrows will simply heal the caster on use. If you look at my character, I actually pop up in yellow for a brief moment. So let's jump off something a little bit high just to take some fall damage just to show it. And as we can see, I'm just going to fire a recovery arrow at nothing, and my health goes up. It's not just a little heal though. Look at the amount of healing I just got. That was what, 25%? All the way back to full, or at least my current max, in 2 quick casts, and I wasn't even aiming at anything. So every time that you heal an ally or use the revive or whatever you're using it for, you're actually healing yourself. That's how it works, and it's important to know that because it is a very effective way to keep you and the team alive. And it's true, you don't necessarily need a mage for its default core ability, the raw AoE healing, because of that. Lastly for the video, we're taking a look at some armor sets, and I'm standing here in the unmoored world with the fighter set you can only get from the Dragon Forge trades for Worm's Life crystals. This is not the cover art box armor. It's close because there's parts of it that literally are taken from the cover art armor. If you look at the legs here and the knees specifically, you have these kind of circle spike things on the side. If you look at the shoulders, they have these kind of pointy guards on either side of the neck. Actually, the chest piece has the same kind of red scale body on it. And lastly, you have the helmet where we have these kind of spikes coming out, except as you can obviously see, they're draconic horn style, meaning they're a little bit bent, a little bit higher up, like taller. But if we actually compare these things to the cover art, as we lovingly call him, John Dogma, parts of these things are absolutely there. The legs, the knees with the outward spike circle things, the red chest piece. But the crown is wrong. The crown is straight and shorter, not like Dragonbone at all. The legs do not have the same kind of scaled design to them. The gloves are completely different. The shoulders are pointy and raised compared to the downwards of the ones that we see in game. So obviously the armor set we get in the unmoored world, the final endgame armor, is not John Dogma's armor. So how do you get John Dogma's armor? Well, if you equip the Grand Cuirass, an earlier set, we can actually see the correct shoulders. The gloves are now correct, actually. And if we equip the Raptor Claw's legs, well, those are the scaled legs that he's supposed to be wearing. In fact, the helmet is the Bishop's crown. Also something you can get in the game, I just don't have it right now. So the reality of John Dogma's armor set is that it doesn't exist in Dragons Dogma 2. The cover art armor does not exist, and it's not the only place you see it. I was inspired to talk about this and look at it because of a post on the Reddit by Vermilion Pixel talking about how why it doesn't exist in the game. Not only that, they went to the trouble to create this image. It's really good. It shows where the armor pieces are from on John Dogma's armor set to show how actually it doesn't exist at all. It's a combination of different armor pieces to create something quite unique and obviously very iconic for the cover art. But yeah, it's fascinating to me that the iconic armor from all the splash screens, from all of the posters, the poster child, the John whatever of the game, doesn't exist in the game. Parts of it do. They just went to the effort of creating an entirely new thing from them. It's a shame because it looks awesome and it feels so dumb to not be able to get it in the game. Maybe this is more DLC copium to huff on, I don't know. But yeah, there you have it. Another episode of the Things You Didn't Know series for Dragons Dogma 2. If you guys know anything about the topics we've talked about and want to add something or maybe have a different suggestion for the series, please let us know in the comments. It keeps us going. For now though, thank you very much for watching. I've been Hollow, you've been you. I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.